Howdy, folks. This is Jim Tremaine from DJ Times Magazine. I'm stationed just out of New York City, and today we're taking another trip beyond our borders and reaching over the pond to connect with the London-based DJ producer Thousand Fingers. I want to give you a proper introduction, so let me do that.
Thank you.
Also known as Hakan Özkan, is that right?
Hakan Özkan. Yeah.
See, look at that. I worked on my Turkish all day today. The Turkish-born Thousand Fingers creates house music with a unique artistic approach, and his distinctive creations have caught the ear of top DJs across the globe, including Solomon, Maya Jane Coles, and Miss Kitten. Outside of the studio, he's played many of Europe's top venues and played with many of the world's top talents, from Marcus Schultz to Grammatic, Hercules, and Love Affair.
Mm-hmm.
Thousand Fingers is also the founder of Follow the Fingers, a brand comprising a record label and a recording studio. The record label shared its first release this past September with the Outta Here EP, which is a deep exploration of house music. And be sure to keep a lookout for the upcoming release, She Said, which is out May 14th. All right, Twitchers, please welcome Thousand Fingers. Welcome aboard, Hakan. How you doing?
Hi, thank you. I'm good. I'm very well. Thank you.
Well, yeah, we had a little scare there. It sounded like I set off the alarm bells in your studio.
Yeah. Just a minute ago. I don't know what happened. So the other studio seems fine.
Okay, so the fire department's not going to come busting in?
Hope not. Otherwise,
okay.
Not interesting interview.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
I'm sure you never had that before.
I don't think I've ever talked to a London fireman, but that'll be a first. So first off, I got to tell you, I really I love She Said. It's got a real old school journey through sound vibe. It's got like it's deep and it's dark and it sounds very 3 a.m. It's got kind of a Giorgio Moroder vibe to it at all.
Yes, a little bit.
He was a little bit of an influence for you, I would imagine.
Yes, nowadays I've been listening a lot of indie dance tracks, to be fair. So sound-wise, I wanted to create something between that old school disco fashion and this nowadays like melodic house, melodic techno kind of style. So I wanted to create something in between them.
Yeah, we'll get into your creation process in a little bit because I'm very curious. Your music has a lot of things in a gumbo, and that's why I find it very interesting. But I want to go back to the beginnings. And where did your love of music start? What were you listening to in the beginning? Was there a song, an artist, a video? What got you going?
It's my musical journey being really versatile, to be fair. My mother is a ballerina, and during my childhood, I spent a lot of time at her rehearsals and shows. So I've been grow up with lots of classical music. Then after the high school, I start playing guitar, and by the time I was really enjoying with metal music, so I was making black metal, and I had a cyber gore grind project as well.
So you're a guitar player?
Yeah, originally I'm a guitar player.
Okay, and this your musical beginnings, was this all in Turkey, or when did you eventually?
I was in Turkey until 2015.
Okay.
So during that period, I studied in Istanbul Bilgi University music department. So we had an education, something mixed with music theory and sound technologies.
Hold on right there. You want to hear something very ironic?
Yeah, it's coming.
That's the fire department here in Long Island. So tit for tat. There you go. we're fighting back. Fire department with fire department. So yes, you had a real musical education, from what I understand.
Yeah, I've done a degree and master's degree as well. So I moved to London in 2015 to do masters in record production, and I studied in London College of Music.
Okay, how many instruments do you play?
So my main instrument is guitar, so I can play a little bit keys, And like back then, I was so like one part of my life, I was involved in psytrance, and those days I was like listening a guy called Rajil. So he
Mhm.
was using lots of didgeridoo and Aboriginal instruments
Sure. Yeah.
in his productions.
Out in the jungle. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the vibe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I played a little bit didgeridoo as well, but yeah, my mainly I play uh, like scaled instruments like piano or so. I don't play like fretless guitar or like violin or those kind of things.
And didgeridoo is a little difficult for a live show, right?
Yes, especially for a sound engineer, it's a little bit hard to, I mean, get that sound. Also, make it like properly, like deep and strong.
So let me go backwards a little bit and ask you a little bit about your guitar influences. You said you were into black metal or dark metal. Were you into like you know, Slayer or things from Scandinavia? What was the music that you were really digging, and which guitar players?
So I was by the time that I involved in like metal music, I was listening Mayhem, Dark Funeral,
Mhm.
and Emperor, like mostly those Scandinavian bands. But I was also listening like Metallica, Slayer, Iron Maiden, and I was listening Cannibal Corpse a lot to like
Okay.
their shredding style and their like musical phrases that they're really fun. They are really fun to play on guitar.
And don't forget their cover art.
Yeah, hammer smash face.
Yes, yes. Who can forget that? And who would have figured somebody who like Cannibal Corpse would be a Psytrance fan as well?
So all those musical styles, they all relate to different periods of my life. So they mostly those musical styles mostly interact with my emotional
Mhm.
status. So that's happening. So Thousand Fingers, like it can make like house music for a while, then it can make like indie dance or techno maybe on a later period.
So let's talk a little bit about how you got into electronic music. You said Psytrance. Did you go to an event? Did you hear it online? You have a friend who turned you on to it? Where did that start?
So actually, it's that electronic vibes started with Cyber Gore Grind that I was listening before, and after that I got into that psytrance, and yeah, I've been in a couple of psytrance events that happened in Turkey, Istanbul mostly. So the first one that I've been was in a like small island,
Hmm.
and they ran to a real nice space next to the sea. So it was a really nice experience for me. And after that, whoa, okay,
I like this.
yeah, it got me.
Yeah. No, I mean everybody has those formative experiences, and I'm sure that one really drew you in.
Uh-huh. And after that, I'm gonna be fair. So my first electronic music festival was in 2011.
Right.
Before that, I was going into like small clubs and etc. But that festival was also a cornerstone in my life. So like seeing all these things on a big stage.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that Turkey actually has a bit of a club scene. I know that a lot of the house music DJs used to play in Istanbul back in the day. I don't remember the name of the big club, but I remember, you know, people like Danny Tenaglia and Josh Wink and a
Mhm.
lot of them, they had Turkey on their tour schedule. A lot of electronic music fans there, right?
Yeah, there are. And after 2015, I guess, after that Burning Man started to spread around the world,
Mhm.
that fashion, so we started in Turkey, they started to have like more electronic music artists because the that ethnic sound is coming from our roots. So I think the Turkish dance music producers done really well in the scene, and there are like lots of artists going on the charts now.
How does Turkish music, folk music, or indigenous music of Turkey, how does that meld in with electronic music?
How can I? So the popular culture has the same sort of sonic palette with the European or global pop scene, and on the other hand, our folkloric music, it's how can I say? It's unique. So I'm not sure if it could be if people could be able to represent that sound, fully represent that sound in the European scene. So it's a little bit mixture of the electronic ethnic house music scenes, mixture of a little bit like European music and Turkish music, I can say.
Yeah, I remember the first couple of times I went to Ibiza, I was really surprised at how there was sort of like Middle Eastern sounding music that was mixed with house music and techno and trance, and it sounded great in a big sound system. If you played it maybe in a car, it wouldn't grab you the same way. But there's something about the melodies, and there's like a sort of a swirling part to the music that is very it can take you away.
I assume it's the ambience.
Yes, of course. Yeah, of course it is.
It's important where you listen. It's the music is like it's related with your with that moment.
Yeah.
So
the environment has to be perfect.
Yes.
I understand. So let me ask you a little bit about what after you moved to London. London has always been considered one of the great capitals for dance music all around the world. Not only is it in the clubs, but they have all kinds of shops. It's very much with the culture. What was it like to come to a city like London with such a deep history in electronic dance music?
So I'm still fascinated with the London scene, to be fair. And by the time when I first arrived here, it was like a dream for me. And after I start like doing masters, I had chance to read more. And after I start like hanging around with my friends in the city, I had chance to experience the culture more. And it's really I like the versatility in the city. So you can listen many different kinds of music in the same city. So that's the main part which fascinated me.
Did you go to clubs like Fabric or some of the other nightclubs?
I've been in most of the like big clubs, and I've played on some of them as well. But apart from that, I'm a more like a warehouse party or small club party guy.
Right.
I'm more like this intimate
environment. Yeah. So were there any DJs that caught your eye when you came to London? Anybody that you hadn't heard before or really enjoyed once you saw them here?
So I've seen lots of new DJs here, to be fair. But when I was in Turkey, I listened to Jimmy Edgar in Babylon, in a club called Babylon. And
Jimmy Edgar.
Yeah.
Right.
And after I came to London, I've seen him playing in Fabric. I was like, yes. Let's listen him in Fabric. And that was really it was like a dream for me. Still I remember that night.
Yeah, I have some nights in London that I'll never forget. There was a club there on West Central Street called The End, and Mr. C and Leo and Bushwacka and those guys play. Some of the best nights I ever had. So for you, what makes a great DJ? what makes you enjoy a DJ? Is it just the tracks? Is it the journey? What is it that makes you appreciate a good DJ?
I think it's the interaction and the emotional interplay between the DJ and the crowd. So some DJs are like going up on stage with prepared sets. So to be fair, like DJing should involve in that like emotional cycle between the crowd and the DJ himself or herself. And a good DJ should be like having that communication with the crowd.
Right. Yeah, those are the best ones for sure. So let's talk a little bit about how you got into DJing. You were more of a traditional musician with a big musical background. How long did it take for you to become comfortable DJing in front of people?
So when I was in Turkey, I was working in recording studios. I was a recording engineer.
Okay.
And after a while, I started working with a DJ called Burak Yeter. And I was doing the recordings for his productions by the time. And he had a DJing school as well. So I had that DJ setup under my hands all the time. And as a musician, as a guitarist, I had a little bit distance to electronic music back then.
Sure. Yeah, like a lot of traditional musicians, yes.
But after I start playing and learning more about the equipment and what I can do with it and how I can like use the music to engage with the audience and or the other people, so I was like, maybe I should start learn this, and I got some help from professionals, and I practiced a lot.
Yeah, well, practice makes perfect. But and now you're playing in front of thousands of people. What's your DJ setup? Why do you choose the setup that you use?
Mainly, I use Pioneer setup, but if I go to a place with different brands, it's okay. I can play with any setup. I don't mind.
Do you show up with a laptop or USBs?
I use USBs at the moment, but first I started with CDs and vinyls, but I'm not a vinyl guy, by the way, so not many DJs are going to appreciate with what I say now. But yeah, I'm not a real vinyl guy, so I like to carry lots of music with me. And
when you play out, how much of it is your music and how much of it is other people?
So depends on what type of set I'm playing. To be fair, I've produced like lots of music with my allies back then, and by the time I was playing disco with a project called Paradisco, and I was playing my tracks by the time, but at the moment I changed the style of Thousand Fingers a little bit, and now it's more into like in the dance and melodic techno, so I'll be able to play my upcoming music on my sets. So I was playing other people's music mostly.
And what are some producers, electronic producers that you enjoy and that you like to listen to?
Nowadays I'm listening Teus Mango. So he's an indie dance producer. I really enjoy with his set, music and productions. Teus Mango.
Okay. For the young people who are listening now, what would be some advice for a young person who wants to become a successful DJ producer?
Successful DJ and producer. I can say it takes time. So sometimes I'm having like music production students or like DJing students in the studio, and they expecting things to happen in a really like fast. So they what I can advise them, they just take their time, appreciate with the process, and learn more, and follow the technological developments as
And
well.
there's a lot of those. So let's talk a little bit about the Follow the Fingers brand that you started. What was the idea behind Follow the Fingers?
So so that was my dream, to create a music studio that is linked with a record label. So before I was coming into London, I had this idea in somewhere in my mind, and Follow the Fingers is something I was using on my social media posts. So my and was it 2019, yeah, February. So just before lockdown, I got myself a studio in a creative workspace called 1087.
Mm-hmm.
And I start setting up studio. Then I had to come up with a brand to create that record label and etc. I was like, why not use Follow the Fingers?
Sure. So what is your vision for the label? Do you want to have a lot of different types of sounds? Do you want it to be all 1,000 fingers? What do you envision for the future?
So in terms of the musical styles that we are going to release, it's going to change in time. So at the moment, we are focusing on indie dance and melodic techno. And our first releases are on house style. But it's going to be keep changing. So the idea behind using those like 1,000 fingers or Follow the Fingers name, so they don't have any musical identity.
Right.
And I like to keep it versatile.
Yeah. Honestly, if you go down the rabbit hole and listen to a lot of the stuff on Beatport that you put out, it's not so easy to categorize your music. I mean, I would call it house music, but it's not exactly typical house music. You mix a lot of flavors in the pot. You keep it really groovy for the dance floor, but you keep it interesting for the ears and the head as well. You have certain hooks in there. Some of them are more obvious than others, but they're definitely there and they're memorable. Talk a little bit about your approach to your tracks and your process for creating them.
So during the COVID times, I had the most intense like music creation process in my life, and it came out from my emotional change. So even I was making like metal music, so they were all reflection of my emotions and feelings basically. And my creation process firstly involves in my experiences in life. So they could be uh, like it could be a conversation, it could be an argument, or it could be an event that I had with other people. So I use those ideas and my thoughts to create these musical pieces. And first I have the thought, and I mix it a little bit with the fictional story as well. So they are not just 100% happened in my life. So I create those stories and I write music to express my emotions while I'm having that that event.
Right. The tune that's coming out soon, she said, I mentioned before, it has that sort of a journey feel to it. And I don't mean the band. I mean like you're traveling sound. Are you familiar with Marauder's song, "The Chase"?
Marauders, The Chase.
It reminds me a tiny bit of that. I know Turks don't love the movie Midnight Express, but it's from that movie, and it reminds me a tiny bit of it, and I mean that in a good way. Yours is a much more modern feel to it. It has like a modern dance floor, but it's not exactly house. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
So you listen to a lot of different kind of musics, and it all comes together.
Yes. In she said as I mentioned earlier, I try to mix like different musical eras in one style. So it's a little bit indie dance and a little
Right.
bit maybe techno, and it has that Giorgio Moroder disco feel from the 80s.
Yeah, this was actually the 70s.
Yes, sorry.
1978. So, but anyway, I love that track, and Ten of Cups is also a good one as well. So everybody take a look out for that when it comes out. Let's talk a little bit about your studio, and we don't have to go down the rabbit hole completely on the studio because I know you have a lot of pieces of gear, but what programs do you use? What's your DAW, controller, monitors?
So I'm using Logic Pro X for music production, and I have a very long, very good history with Pro Tools. So I prefer Pro Tools for recordings, and I use Logic for music production.
Mm-hmm.
And apart from that, I'm using Antelope Audio sound card as a AD and the converter. Yeah. And I'm a really fan of Edom Audio speakers, to be fair. And I have two Edom A7s, and they link with Sub 10, the sub bass. So these are the main elements in my studio.
Your synths are very distinct. Are yours all soft synths, or do you have analog?
I'm using all soft synths at the moment.
And what are some of your favorites?
So Arturia plugins, those are my favorites. So at some point, maybe I could get their hardware versions, but let's see. I might need to move to a new place to do that.
Yeah. Analog production's a little different, yes.
Yeah, at the moment I'm using Arturia plugins. I'm using Native Instruments plugins, and I'm really big fan of the brand called Output.
Output, yeah.
Yeah, I'm using a lot of sounds from their plugins as well.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about working with other people. Do you like to collaborate with other producers?
Yeah, I do.
So what is that process like for you? What do you bring to the collaboration, and what do you like to see somebody else bring to the collaboration?
I don't have any corners on that, to be fair. So whatever comes, it can be a melody, it can be a like rhythmical pattern. So it can be anything. It can be like in a thought, in a word. So I don't have any expectations when collaborating with someone else. So it's just the interaction between us and the communication between us. So I don't have any expectations. I can work with anything.
Well, okay. So let me go back to the lockdown a little bit. Everybody had a different experience. You sounded like you had a bit of an emotional experience where you had to really focus your creative energies. Did you have any difficulty making music?
Not for making music, but my life being a little bit difficult during the lockdown. So I moved out from my place in February, 2020 February.
Oh, great timing. Yeah.
Yes, and I moved out from there because I was working in my room. So like bedroom producer.
Sure.
Thing. And it was really depressive for me. So I was waking up in the same room, like working all day, then sleeping in the room. So I was like, oh, wish I could have a music studio at some point. And in February, I had a chance to move out, and I took the chance, to be fair, and throw myself into fire. And I found myself a music studio in March. By the way, I didn't have a permanent place to stay. And I got the studio on the 9th of March. Then lockdown been announced in 11th of March, just 2 days after. And for 10 months, I didn't have a permanent place to live. So I stayed at my friend's house for a long time, for 4 months. Then I moved back to Turkey for 2 months. Then I came back here. And so this is one of the difficulties that I had during the lockdown. But I always had the studio.
Right. But you had the inspiration to create music. You didn't lose that.
Yes.
Okay. So that's important. So, you know, I'd heard some stories of some people who had a difficult time making music, even though they had a lot of time on their hands. The inspiration wasn't always there.
Yeah, it's a kind of escape point for me. So I'm sure everybody having difficult times and they have like different ways to like relax themselves or like forget things or go over some difficulties. So for me, it's music.
Yeah. Now, during the lockdown, was there a soundtrack of things that you listened to a lot? I mean, like everybody talks about their pandemic playlist. You know, like for me, for a while it was like Brian Eno, this jazz guy named Art Pepper. There was an old Clash record called Sandinista and those were the things I just kept going back to for some reason. Did you have a rotation of music of things that you kept going back to listen to during the period?
Not really. So uh, I'm I'm using Spotify a lot, and
Right.
I really like their Discover weekly suggestions.
Okay.
So I'm not a guy to, I mean, stuck on one producer, one music or one sound. So I keep like listening different kinds of music all the time.
Right.
So it's been changing a lot, to be
Well,
fair.
that's good. I mean, that's the great thing about Spotify. They turn a lot of people on to a lot of different kinds of music.
As a music fan, like as a like uh, good music listener, I really like Spotify. But as a music producer, I don't agree with that too.
That's another conversation. Yeah. Yeah. You're going to have a really big hit to make any money off Spotify.
Yes. Also, the thing is like within this couple of months, what I realized, they are changing the music production styles. So that's the other thing that I've seen lately with Spotify. So at the moment, if you go on to their like created playlists with some like techno tracks and etc., you'll see lots of like 3-4 minute techno tunes, which is unusual for a dance music producer. Most of the like
Much longer tracks. Yeah.
7 or 8 minutes. So they are changing they are a little bit changing the habits.
It's for the generation it's for the generation with no attention span.
Yes.
I understand. So how do you expect venues and festivals to return? How's that working out over in England and in Europe right now? I know some countries are opening up and some aren't opening up. What's the environment like now?
In London, so it's getting better, I can say. So they opened outdoor spaces, and like at the moment, people are making like seated events, and seems like it's gonna go like this until June, like 12th. I guess 12th of June, and after that, the clubs and venues are going to be open. So most of the festivals are cancelled for this year as well. And however, I don't think it's going to affect the club scene, like club nights.
Okay, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting summer. So I guess you're pretty excited to get back out performing eventually, right?
Yes. Yeah. I also start doing like small performances in like small gatherings, like warehouse parties and etc. But I have an event coming up in May with my house project called One Track Lovers. So we'll be playing in a outdoor space with other like lots of house and disco DJs. So it's going to be interesting. And I'm planning to get some gigs for Thousand Fingers for the summer.
Okay, that's awesome. So to wrap up the interview, I would just want to ask you, what's next for you musically? What can we look forward to release-wise?
So release-wise, after this She Said EP, I'm going to. I've just finished the mixing today, actually. So I'm going to get the masters tomorrow. So it's going to be something between like progressive house and again, I mix progressive house with cinematic sounds, let's say.
Okay. Sounds like another interesting production from Thousand Fingers. So
Yes.
Hakan, thank you so much for doing this. We greatly appreciate it. I hope the firemen don't knock down your front door.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. All right, man.
Not yet.
We'll
Nice
talk to you.
talking to you.